chat rather than talking. So welcome to my Christmas webinar. So I did this last year as well. And the feedback was really positive because, well, I know myself what it's like struggling at Christmas. I love Christmas time, but it even tested my Christmas spirit when we were struggling. So we had 6 Christmases where we were trying and going through IVF, and I really struggled with them, and it got worse as each year went on. So I wanted to make sure I did something and offer more support at this time of year, because I know it's really difficult. And even if there's just 1 or 2 tips that you take from tonight that are helpful to you, or it's just the ability to share how you're feeling, then you've taken something away. So that's the main thing. So as I said, it's being recorded, so please feel free to stay off your camera if you'd prefer. I'm sorry if I'm coughing through it. I've got a really annoying cough. So I know, as I say, it can be really tough at this time of year. So it's really important to focus on self-care and the things that you do have rather than things you don't, because it is a bit of a time for reflection. And that can be really tough. And there's a lot of triggering things that can happen at Christmas time, family events where you're worried you're going to be getting questioned, or work dues where you may be drinking or expected to be drinking, and if you want them to hide that. So it can be quite an intense time of year, on top of all present buying and trying to finish everything off at work if you're finishing or working over Christmas time. It can be overwhelming at this time of year. So we're going to have a look at ways that you can embrace that holiday spirit a bit while still looking after your emotional well-being, so that you can find ways to redefine Christmas time for you. So finding solace and self-care things, making time for self-care, and through strategies for coping at triggering events or with triggering comments. My aim of this session is to help you find joy at the festive time, and redefine Christmas as something to look forward to and something that means something to you, rather than the focus being on families and it feeling a bit like a negative time for you. So I want to redefine it as a positive time for you. So I just wanted to check in. So I'm going to just stop sharing in case anybody wants to comment. How are you feeling about Christmas time? Feel free if you want to share. If you don't want to, that's totally fine. I'm not going to pressure anybody to share. I know I sort of found it tricky. Certainly the drinking over Christmas. I'm not a big drinker anyway. Certainly sort of all the years of going through treatment and struggling kind of put me off drinking. I think I just went so long without it. So for me, sort of going to work days where everybody was drinking were quite challenging, and trying to hide that. I felt like there was just a lot of focus on families, so it's difficult to get away from that. So for me, that was quite tough. So I don't know if anybody wants to share about how they're feeling. As I say, if you don't want to share, it's totally fine, and there's no pressure to. If you want to share as we're going through, then that's fine too. I can go through the comments at the end, but I just hope all of you are feeling all right, and that you're finding ways to kind of find joy in the season, find ways to cope, and that the things I'm going to talk through will help you. So I have mixed feelings at the moment, little up and down, but I found that throughout most of the TTC journey. It is, and I think sometimes you can feel like you're absolutely fine, and then somebody says something, or somebody does something, or posts something, and it can sort of knock us a little bit, can't it? And I think sometimes you can feel fine and feel like you're doing okay, but it's just something can trigger it. And days are like, especially with like hormones and things like that. And if you're going through treatment, there's so many things that can impact on it, aren't there? Usually feel very positive at Christmas and really looking forward to it. This year, hating it. I've just had a second failed IVF treatment. Hasn't helped. I'm so sorry. It's awful. I definitely found like the point after our failed cycle was the point I found the hardest. So it's hard if it's been at this time of year to sort of pick yourself up from that. So I'm so sorry that you've been through that. It's really difficult, and I think I assume that's probably contributed a bit to the way you're feeling. And I think it doesn't help that people firstly don't understand why we're so upset after a failed cycle, because they can't understand why we're so upset for something that they don't think we ever had. And I think if you've not been through that, it's very difficult to get your head around, and that means you don't get the support, and people just expect you to be getting on with life. And if they're expecting you to be cheerful because it's Christmas, it adds all that extra pressure, doesn't it? So it's no surprise that you're feeling like that. And I hope you've got a good support network around you to help with that as well. all my best friends have got babies. It's their first Christmas with a baby, and I really thought that was going to be me. Yeah, I know. It's awful. I felt the same, and I know a lot of people I speak to. You every Christmas you don't have one, you think next Christmas, or hopefully might be my Christmas, and it's not helped when everybody around you has families as well, because you maybe don't get invited to as much, so you don't have the same distractions. And people aren't always very sensitive when they have new babies. They like to kind of be showing them off, talking about them. And if they're experiencing a lot first, then there's likely to be lots of posting on social media about it as well. You can't really escape from it. So that doesn't help if your close circle have got I've got families as well, and I will go on to talk about it, but I think it's maybe if you're struggling, giving yourself permission to come off social media so that you're not seeing all of those things, if they're not being perhaps as sensitive as you'd like them to be around the fact that they've got what they wanted, but you're still where you are. So, maybe that might be helpful, and hopefully some of these tips will help. Feel sad emotions, not to not be able to fully celebrate the family feeling of Christmas, multiple failed attempts, each get harder. Yeah, it's very difficult to stay positive and hopeful when all you've had are negatives. And just because you've had a negative before doesn't mean that's what will happen again, but it's hard to get past that. I struggled moving on from ours to think that it could ever happen for us, because you struggle with that balance of being hopeful that it'll work next time, but also trying not to get your hopes up too much that you feel like you're building yourself up. So it's really difficult. And yeah, I think because unfortunately, all the adverts that are around, everything in shops, everything is so geared towards families at Christmas, and you can't get away from it. And it feels like it's rubbing your face in it a bit, doesn't it? And it's very difficult to try and stay positive and enjoy Christmas when it's like that. 3 failed rounds of embryo transfer, but I feel a little numb after so much disappointment. I'm quite scared of the family gatherings at Christmas. So many children and constant questions and comments like, why hasn't it worked yet? Oh, you're the only one I know who's struggling. Yeah, it's really insensitive. Is that? And I'm sorry that that's what you're experiencing. I think it just goes back to that lack of understanding that people who fortunately haven't had to experience what we've been through, just don't get what it's like. So they don't understand how triggering and upsetting it is somebody saying, why hasn't it worked yet? Because they don't understand the fact that actually, unfortunately, it doesn't work more times than it does work. So it's really difficult. I am going to talk through a few ways that you can answer that question about having children, and maybe anybody, don't worry about being late at all. Just so you know, it is being recorded. So if you want to kind of hide your name, but keep yourselves off camera if you want to, that's totally fine. And there's no pressure to say anything if you don't want to. Yeah, we will talk through some ways you can answer those questions and ways you can get around it. But it's very difficult at this time of year because you feel that pressure to be going to family events when actually it's the last place you want to be. Whether that's family events or friends events. And that's why there needs to be a lot more awareness raising about what it's like to actually go through it, so that people hopefully start to understand and don't ask questions like that, and don't have this expectation that they can ask you about it, because you wouldn't ask somebody generally whether they were having sex, would you? I don't see why it should be any different about this. So yeah, I can completely understand with how everybody's feeling, because I felt the same, and a lot of people I speak to feel the same as well. So hopefully what I'm going to talk through will help with that. I'm going to present now. If anybody wants to say anything, please just unmute yourself and shout out. It's fine. I'll go back to sharing my screen, because then we've got hopefully have time at the end as well to chat if anybody wants to share anything that's worked for them, or how they're feeling, or just want to chat and support, then that's totally fine. I'm sorry about the coffee. So what would be really good is to think about how you can redefine Christmas as a positive time with your partner or with friends or with family, so that it's not this huge focus on families, because it doesn't need to be that. Christmas can be whatever you want it to be about, and obviously we all want it to be about the same thing, to be about having a family, but it's about trying to redefine it so that you can enjoy it until that is a reality, whether that's sort of being happy about the fact you've got time off work. You could have time with friends, time just to recharge your batteries and for some self-care. I don't know, not everybody has time off work over Christmas time. So it's kind of trying to work out how you can still make it something that's enjoyable for you, to give you kind of that peace and joy over Christmas, but something to look forward to so that it isn't something that you're dreading. So it's thinking about what you would like it to be. And maybe that could be a case of writing down what your ideal Christmas would look like. If your ideal Christmas is you shut yourselves away from everybody else and you just spend the day with your partner or with another couple that you know or with family, whatever it means to you, whether you just write down what you'd love it to be and why can't it be like that? Is there a way that you could do that? If you've told friends and family, then you can maybe explain that actually you need to protect yourself this Christmas and that is what you need to do. And you hope that if you have understanding friends and family, that they will support you in that and understand why you need to do that. So maybe write down what your ideal Christmas would be and don't take into account at this point other people's expectations of you or feeling bad about doing something, because it might be that once you've written down your ideal, you can think, well, actually, there's no way I can fully do that. But is there a kind of a way that I can make it half happen? At least you're a little bit closer. We'll go on to talk about kind of new traditions, just so that Christmas becomes a time to look forward to rather than dreading. First, and then it's really important before you do anything, it's normal to feel like this. We've already shared, a few of us, how we felt at Christmas time, and everybody I speak to who is on the same journey feels the same at Christmas time. So don't beat yourself up about how you're feeling. Don't add guilt or frustration and things to how you're already feeling. It's normal to feel a range of emotions. You might feel really excited and happy at one point because you think, well, we've got a few nights out or fun things planned with friends, but then to be really upset the next. So it's really normal. Be compassionate with yourself and think about what you can do to make yourself feel better and happier. What could you organize that will make you smile rather than sort of feeling upset and feeling sorry for yourself and feeling all these emotions? What can you do to make yourself feel happier? But just be kind to yourself, be compassionate. It's really normal. And if you're feeling like that, just do what you need to do to make yourself feel better. Make sure you're planning in that time for self-care. Christmas can be really chaotic. There's so much pressure and expectation to be buying presents for people, to be helping people with certain things, to be cooking Christmas dinner, to be visiting certain people. Just try and make that time for yourself. It's really critical at this time, when emotions are running high, that you look after yourself as well. So whether that is going for a walk away from everything, either on your own, with your partner, with a friend, having an evening in with a book or a bath, just find the rituals that kind of nurture and recharge you, that give you that time to rest, and don't feel guilty for doing it. It's not a luxury, and I should listen to my own advice with this, because otherwise this is why I end up burnt out, to actually just take that time out. And if you have to plan it in your diary and block it out so that nobody fills it with anything, or so that you make sure it happens, then do that, because it's a reminder that it's really important. You don't want to end up burnt out at this time of year. When I worked as a senior buyer before I do what I do now, and I would literally be skidding into Christmas feeling awful. I'd always be ill over Christmas because I'd been working so hard right up until the last minute so that everything was done before I finished for Christmas. I worked crazy hours, and I was always really poorly over Christmas and never took enough time in December to just recharge my batteries. So set realistic expectations for yourself. So think about what you actually need to get done. I think we're often guilty of creating huge to-do lists that then get a bit overwhelming. And maybe if you sit and think about them, you don't need to do all of them, or you could maybe delegate it to somebody else. But just be realistic about what you need to do, about who you need to see, so that you're protecting your emotional well-being and being realistic, because you're only going to end up feeling tired and burnt out if you are trying to do too much and you're setting too high expectations. And we all know it's so much harder to cope when we're feeling emotional, when we're tired. I'm quite an emotional person. I cry a lot when things bother me, and I find that I'm a lot more like that when I'm really tired. So just be realistic with yourself about what you're expecting. Make a list of the really urgent things so you can work through that, and a plan to get them done, and plan in time to do them so you can do it without putting too much pressure on yourself. So trying to get shopping done early if you can do, so it's not last minute, just because it makes it that much easier to cope with stuff when you're not feeling worn out. And set boundaries for yourself. So when there's so much pressure to be doing things that other people expect of you, then it becomes difficult. And as I keep saying, our own well-being becomes a bit overlooked and put to the bottom of the priority pile, both physically and emotionally. There's so many bugs flying around at the minute that you're much more likely to pick them up if you're overtired and things. And I think it's not just kind of the physical boundaries about what you're sort of agreeing to do. So kind of put boundaries in what you agree to do in terms of your time, and what time you're giving to people, but also emotion is to set boundaries of, I'm not prepared to talk about treatment over Christmas. I don't want to. It's too triggering for me. So if anybody says anything to me, I'm just going to say, I don't really want to talk about it at the minute. You know, we can catch up in January, but at the minute, I don't want to speak about it. Or if you do, then that's totally fine. But it's setting boundaries that are right for you. So set boundaries on what you're willing to do, how much time you're willing to devote to certain things, whether that's working over, whether that's helping other people with their shopping, or helping other people with their problems at Christmas time, so that you can manage your own and other people's expectations. So whether that is actually, I don't want to be attending every work do, or I don't want to attend every family do. Set those expectations early and say, even if you have to lie, we'll go on to talk about this, even if you have to lie about why you're not going, but set those boundaries so that you're clear with yourself and other people. I've mentioned this already, but maybe coming off social media, if you've got a lot of friends, whether they're just social media friends or close friends and family that post a lot with their families over Christmas time, then it might be a good idea to come off social media for a little bit. I know it's difficult because it's quite often how we keep in touch, especially over Christmas, if people are busy, you're not working, if you're in support groups, and quite often social media is a bit of a lifeline as well. So whether it's that you snooze certain people that you know are a little bit triggering, or a little bit photo happy over Christmas, then maybe snooze them or come off social media, and as long as you need to, whether that's from Christmas Eve till Boxing Day, or whether it's from the middle of December, whatever feels right for you. If you don't want to see those pictures, remember it's your life and you get to choose what you let in. So whether that's the things you read, the things you see, you need to protect yourself and do what's right for you. You can always keep in touch with like your friends and loved ones by a text message or ringing them. Not that many of us ring one another anymore, but you can still keep in touch that way rather than social media. But it's doing what's right for you. If you find it a source of comfort, then stay on, because it's there as your support network. But if you're finding that it's really triggering, it's totally okay. Just think it's fine. I don't need to see what they're showing me, and I don't feel guilty for it. So have a think. We talked about how to redefine Christmas time. Have a think about how you can start some new traditions, whether that's with your partner, with your friends, your family. Think about what things it goes back to that kind of my ideal Christmas. Think about what things you'd like to do, whether that's going for dinner and a meal on a certain date in December, whether it's early December, whether it's getting close to Christmas, having a Christmas shopping trip, whether that's going to like Christmas markets or just a shopping trip in a nice city somewhere, whether that's going on a wreath making class. They've become really popular, whether it's something like that. And things like wreath making classes or Christmas activities are quite good because it takes you away from drinking as well. And I'll go on to talk about that. But have a think about what you can do to start new traditions that you can keep going each year, and whether that is different traditions with family, with friends, with your loved ones, with your partner. It could be like having a Christmas break, you and your partner going on a Christmas break. And if you find Christmas Day tricky, it could be that you go away over Christmas, go Christmas Eve till Boxing Day or the day after, and have like a little Christmas break so that you get away from all of the family things, but also it's a little tradition that you started, and it'll make it about memories that you make with your friends or your partner and a time to look forward to rather than just that family focus. So have a think about any traditions you'd like to start. We go for Christmas Eve breakfast with all our friends and have done for quite a long time now. Um, and it has grown, and that can sort of become difficult when you're struggling, if there's families there. But it was something that was started a long time ago, that we'd all go for breakfast on Christmas Eve together. So have a think about what you could do, and these different traditions you can start. Remember that it's okay to say no to things. So you don't have to go to all the family events and everything you're invited to. It can be really overwhelming. So prioritize your emotional well-being. Only you know what you feel up to doing. If you think, actually, I'll feel worse if I don't go to that event, then that's fine. But don't be afraid to say no. Set those boundaries and stick to them. And it's okay to say no. If this year you're really struggling with it, then just think, do you know what? Next year I might be feeling more positive about it. We'll see when it gets there. But this year I just don't feel up to that. And actually, my well-being is much more important this year, and I need to protect that. And give yourself permission to miss events that you'll find hard. So if you don't want to go to those events, if you've told friends, family, whichever it is, what you're going through, then you could explain that you're just finding these sorts of events really difficult at the minute, that you need to look after your emotional well-being, and that you hope they understand. It's just very hard. And you can explain to them how you're feeling at the minute and how it makes you feel. If you haven't told them what you're going through, which, a lot of people are like, we didn't tell many people what we were going through. You could always make up an excuse about why you can't make it. That there's so many events on. You could just say, I'm really sorry, I've got a works event, or I've got another event that we've already agreed to. You could just lie and then just hide in your lounge so that nobody sees you. Don't feel bad about doing that. You could make up an excuse why you can't go, or say, well, we can, but we've got somewhere else to go after, so we'll come and show our faces. But then we're going to have to leave early, because it just minimizes the amount of time you've got to be there. At least you know that if you said we've got to leave by 8, say you've got an excuse to go if you're finding it difficult. So just give yourself permission to miss things that you don't want to go to. If you don't want people to know that you're not drinking, so say you're on a works do or a family do, and you're trying to hide the fact that you're trying or that you're going through treatment, it can be difficult because people are quite nosy. So if they straight away, if they notice you're not drinking, certainly my friends or work colleagues, anything that you weren't doing, they were like, oh, not drinking, assuming you were pregnant or just making assumptions. So if you want to hide that you're not drinking, there's loads of like non-alcoholic alternatives. If you get them put in a glass, no one would really know. So you could order non-alcoholic alternatives. You could confide in a friend who you trust, who could then pretend to order you alcoholic drinks. So just get you a lemonade, but say that they're ordering you a gin or a vodka, just to kind of hide it. That's what I did when on nights out with friends. Or you could just use an excuse so that you're driving the next day because you've got a big family event, so you don't want to be drinking because you need to be driving early, or that you're on antibiotics. Or if all else fails, if people are buying you drinks, you could always go to the loo and tip it away. It's a bit of a waste of a drink, but if you really don't want people knowing, there's a few things you can do. So you don't want to necessarily avoid going to an event, because I know I used to put off going to things and then I'd feel worse because I'd not gone to stuff and I still wasn't pregnant and I just felt like I'd missed out. If you want to go to things still, then it's a good way of hiding the fact that you're not drinking. So if you're not drinking, you could try and organise events or meetups that don't focus on drinking. So rather than going on a night out, think about other things you could do. So going for a meal where it's not really focused on drinking, or going to the cinema to see a Christmassy film, again, doing a Christmas craft activity, or saying, why don't we have like a relaxing spa day? Just where it's away from drinking. It just makes it that bit easier for you to hide the fact that you're not drinking. So this is one that always comes up because, as we say, there's always some well-meaning relative who wants to ask the question, who has no filter, and will just say what they're thinking, asking when you're starting a family or what's going on. So what I would say is, because it's really difficult to do it on the spot, it used to make me really panic, and I'd sort of say, oh, well, we're not ready yet, and there was only so long I could keep saying that. And my husband used to like take great pleasure in saying, well, we're trying all the time, which was a bit mortifying when I used to say that, especially to my mum. But have a think about something an answer that you're comfortable with. Because if you've already rehearsed it and got it in your head, then you can just reply and then move on quickly. It can just be something simple and then change the subject if you want to do that. I mean, you could use it as an opportunity to educate them on how to, well, educate them on the fact it's not easy for everybody and that people struggle and that actually it's taken a lot longer than you were hoping. So you could say something like, we're trying, but it's not been easy. We'll let you know when we have news to share. It can be really hard because I know it can be very triggering. So trying to think of something, that doesn't invite more questions can be difficult. Just saying we're not ready yet, or that's a very personal question, or even sort of joke saying I've already got a baby and point at your partner or something, just to kind of lighten the mood. And as I say, you could use the opportunity to educate them on the statistics that 1 in 6 people struggle and that it can take a long time, and that actually it can be very triggering and upsetting to people if you ask that question, and they maybe won't ask it again. I have posted, I can't remember, a few days ago, I posted quite a few more other answers on my Instagram, and if you're in my support group as well, you'll have seen them. So that if you want some more ideas, you can have a look at my Instagram page, and there's a few more on there as well, sort of split by humorous ones just to kind of shut them down, how you could answer if you want to educate them. So have a look at that if you need some more ideas. And then, just in case you needed to hear this, it's okay if you don't want to see friends with children at Christmas. Don't feel guilty for that. It can be really triggering, so don't feel like you have to. It's okay to say no to going to things that be too hard. You could always arrange to see if you've got a gift for a friend's child, you could always arrange to see your friend, to give them the gift beforehand, or seeing them earlier in December, so it's not too close to Christmas if that's less triggering. But it's okay to make up an excuse if you don't want to, and it's okay to not want to hold your friends' babies. Again, if your friends understand what you're going through and are supportive and understanding, then you can explain that to them. I know someone mentioned that their friends have all got babies, so it's okay if you don't want to hold them. And I think it's okay to say to your friends, thank you. It's not that I don't want to hold them, but I'm just not in a place where I can do at the minute. That's nothing against you or your child, but I'm just not in a place where I can. And if you don't feel comfortable saying that, then you can always make excuses about why you can't, or even saying, I feel like I'm coming down with a bit of a cold, I wouldn't want to pass anything on. Just to kind of sidestep it if you don't want to make a big deal of it, or explain if you don't feel there'll be understanding around it, because some people aren't always understanding, which is a shame, really. So if you're feeling a little bit low over Christmas, you could treat yourself to something, just to give yourself a little bit of a feel-good boost. And it doesn't have to be anything big. It could just be, if you've got a Christmas party with work, it could just be a Christmas jumper if you just want to try and get into a little festive mood. It could be a new pair of little earrings. It could just be anything. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it's just something that will make you smile and feel good in yourself. So if you're going to events and you're not drinking and you're not feeling great because you've just had a failed cycle, or you're mid-treatment and not feeling brilliant, then it's really hard to get into parties if you're feeling a little bit low on yourself, if you don't feel good about yourself, and it's very difficult to enjoy it. So have a think about if there's something that would just make you feel a little bit more special and make you feel good about yourself. An outfit that's really flattering, or some new shoes that go really well with an outfit you've got, or a new handbag, just something to make yourself feel good about yourself. I know there's a lot of focus on other people, but maybe just treat yourself a little bit to something. It's also can be really helpful if you're struggling with how you're feeling to focus on others at this time of year. It's a great way of making yourself feel good and giving yourself a little bit of that fuzzy, warm feeling, because you've helped somebody at this time of year and making a difference to somebody's life. So it can be great as a thing, sort of making you feel grateful for what you've got, but also just helping you feel good about doing something for someone else. So that could be if you've got like an elderly or lonely relative, or even there's different organisations where there's elderly people who don't have any family that you could maybe visit, just to give them a bit of Christmas cheer. You can make Christmas boxes for the homeless, or I know that quite a lot of places they do ones for families and children as well, or for victims of domestic violence, things like that. There's a lot of different charities that you could help out. It could just be collecting shopping or doing Christmas shopping for a loved one that's a bit less able or elderly, or helping wrap presents for family members. So have a think about if there's something you could do that would help you feel good. It's a bit of a distraction, but also makes you feel good about yourself as well. It might sort of take your mind off things even for a little bit. I know that's difficult, but it might help for a little bit. You could buy the planner, so you could treat yourself or a loved one to my planner, just so you can go into the new year feeling a little bit more positive, and kind of looking forward to kind of how you can make any changes you want to make, just to feel more positive and happy in the new year and help you take control. You could add it to your Christmas list, or as I say, gift it to a friend. They're always very well received from the feedback I get. There is a 10% off code there. If you just put Christmas 10 on my Positivity Planners website, then you can get that. Have a think about the things that you've got. So we put so much focus on the things that we don't have at this time of year, that we forget sometimes that there are a lot of good things going on in our lives. And it is a really difficult time of year, and it is a time of reflection. But try not to just reflect on the one big thing that hasn't happened for you this year. Try and think of the things that have gone well, and it doesn't matter how big they are. It can be really small, just a small little win, or just things that you're thankful for. That could be having a close family, a strong relationship, great friends, a great job. That even just the fact that you have managed to cope through this year with going through treatment, that you've been taking control and doing everything you can to help with treatment. It doesn't have to be big things, and it can be very hard to focus or see any big things when we're struggling. It's just good to focus on any little positive things and just things that you've got in your life, just to have that little reminder about what we have got in our lives. This one is really important over Christmas. So I know I talked about coming off social media, so it's finding what works for you, but use your support system and connect with others who completely understand. So when I finish going through these slides, anybody who wants to talk, either unmuting themselves or on the chat, please feel free, because these groups and these sessions are great for people just to connect and understand you're not alone in what you're going through. So relying on kind of the support groups who will completely get it, who won't judge you, that you're feeling really jealous of your friends, or that you're really angry, and that actually you just want to shut yourself away. They won't judge you for that. So there's the support groups there. Have a chat with a friend. If you've got any friends who've been through it, then chat to them, because they completely understand what it's like to be going through what you're going through. Or if there's friends that are understanding about it, you could maybe make time to speak to them over Christmas time, but rely on your support system. And that could be also if you're speaking to a counsellor at your clinic, if you have things like other talking therapies like reflexology, acupuncture, and using a coach. There's lots of hypnotherapists. There's so many different things. So rely on that support network, and be there for each other, because they can fully empathize with you, and it does make a difference. You could have a think about some time, especially between Christmas and New Year, thinking about next year. So rather than setting New Year's resolutions, because I think most people are guilty of setting New Year's resolutions that we don't necessarily keep, because we kind of do things we feel we should be doing. But rather than doing that, think about something else you'd like to do next year. So whether that's going on a trip you've always wanted to go to, whether that's starting a new course or a hobby, or connecting with friends more that you haven't seen as much, because when you're going through treatment, there's so much time pressure on you that sometimes we can find we shut ourselves away a little bit. We don't see our friends as much as we want to. So have a think about some of the things you'd like to do next year and what your focus is. Obviously, if you're going through treatment and you're still trying, then that is your biggest focus, but try and think of things away from that, so you can feel a little bit more in control and like you're doing something to create the life you want whilst you're still trying and going through treatment. So maybe make a list of things. And once you've got a list, you could start planning out some actions to make them happen. It could be that you want to start eating healthier, or you really want to start exercising a bit more. So having to think about what type of exercise or what food you'd like to be cooking and researching recipes and things. But have a little think about some of the things you'd like to do next year. And then it's just really important to know, if you're struggling this Christmas, be kind to yourself. Talk to somebody that understands, so you can talk honestly about how you feel and the need for support. Um, talk to your partner about if you're struggling, but if you feel like you don't want to be putting everything on them and talking to them, then reach out to somebody, whether that's in a support group, whether it's messaging me, whether it's speaking to your clinic or a counsellor. Reach out, because it can make the world of difference. It can feel like quite a lonely time, because everybody kind of goes off into their own little family bubbles, whether that's if they've got children, but also their families, their wider family. Everybody has their own little things that are going on. So it can feel like quite a lonely time. So please know that you're not alone. There's a lot of support out there, and reach out for it if you need it. So there's my support groups if you're not already part of them. So IVF Support and TTC Support UK. My Instagram is IVF Positivity Planner. I share lots of support and advice on there. You can also direct message me from all of those places. So if you're struggling, I will always get back to you. So please message me if you're struggling. There's my email address, sarah@sarahbanks.coach. That you can contact me on if you want to. And then my planner's website has blogs on there on coping at Christmas, and also one on how loved ones can support you as well. So if you have a look at that and you felt comfortable, you could always send that to your friends and family to help them understand how they can better support you as well. So I'm going to stop sharing. If anybody would like to share anything or talk about anything, you can either unmute yourself, or please feel free to put things in the comments about kind of anything that you think from that would be helpful, or anything else that you found helpful yourself, or any other questions you've got. I'm happy to answer if you want me to answer specific questions on kind of coping over Christmas time. Then please feel free to post those. My husband and I go out for dinner, just the two of us. It's our own little tradition. Yeah, that's really lovely. I think having that time out together and reconnecting, because we put so much focus on going through treatment, that it means quite often all the discussions centre around going through treatment, and it becomes a bit more like, well, when have we got this appointment, and when have we got this appointment, and what should I be doing with this medication? Then actually you forget about the fact you're a couple, and that it's nice to go out and do things together. So just going out, the two of you, and even setting it as a like a no treatment talk, or a no baby talk, can be really helpful, because it just means that you get that time together without it being focused on treatment. It might be that you decide to do that on like a certain night. You could go away for a weekend, just something where you can spend that time together and away from everything else. And do you have any advice on how to arrange to see friends without their babies? Every time I message my friends now to meet up, it always is around the baby and going somewhere and doing something that fits in with the baby, which I totally understand. The baby is young. I just want my friends back, but I don't know how to say it to them. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they know what you're going through, because if they do, then maybe it might be a little bit easier if you can kind of explain then that you're just struggling with it. They do know that you're going through. I know that the little ones are a little, by the sounds of it, but it's a shame they're not a bit more supportive of that. I mean, you could maybe, I suppose it depends on the situation, whether you could say, could we go out for tea? So if it's an evening thing, then it's a little bit, it's more difficult for them to bring children with them. If it's in an evening, it might be more difficult, depending on the situation, to be able to get cover or to be able to leave babies. So if they don't know how you feel and you don't want to say, then maybe trying to arrange things in an evening, so that it's kind of clearer that it is about meeting with them. And you could always just say, oh, I really miss our time together, where we can just chat. It'd be great if their partner or whoever could watch their baby for them, so that you can go out, and you could sort of word it as, I really miss our time together, and it'd be really lovely if we could just have time, the two of us. Do you think you could make it work? So you could word it like that. Or if you felt comfortable to speak to them about it, you could maybe say to them, you know, I'm really struggling, and I really love you, and I love that you've got your child, and I'm really happy for you. And it's not that I'm not happy for you, but I find it really difficult. It's being around children is really hard for me at the minute. I'd really appreciate if we could find some time, just the two of us, to go out, or however many of you. I'd really appreciate if we could go out, just the two of us, because I find it really upsetting. So see how you feel. If you felt comfortable enough to say to them, then maybe talk them through it. But if not, yeah, try the evening plan, because then it is more difficult, and it's a little bit more obvious that it should be kind of just adults rather than having children as well. So give that a go, and I hope that your friends could be understanding around it. I think just because people know what you're going through doesn't mean that they're always understanding around it. We've got friends who knew what we were going through and have sat either side of me, two of them pregnant, talking about their symptoms and complaining about it, and it was awful. So even though they knew what we were going through, they just didn't understand how hard it was for me, seeing them like that, and to have them chatting over me about their problems. So friends don't always understand. If you feel comfortable to tell them, you can do it in a sensitive way. If you don't, then finding kind of ways around it kind of might be your only option, until you feel a point, if you do get to a point where you feel comfortable telling them, you know that they'd understand as well. I'm trying to think if there's anything else from what people have said. I don't know if anybody has any other questions. If there's anything else you'd like to ask me on a specific situation, or just want to share kind of what your plans are over Christmas. If you've got anything booked in already, have you already organised things with friends or loved ones, just to try and help with kind of getting around the festive spirit, you know, and the focus on families? I'm trying to think of things that we did in the run up to Christmas. I think probably I was sort of burying my head in work, to be honest, a lot of the time, racing around trying to get stuff done, and kind of focusing on work as a way of getting around it. And work's Christmas dues, none of them fell around when we were actually starting treatment or going through treatment. So I think I probably just kind of threw myself into them and thought, well, you know, this might be the last works Christmas do I come on, so I might as well enjoy it. So you might feel like that about events as well. If you're not going through treatment and you feel comfortable, you know, you're not cutting back on drinking and things, or you just think, you know what, I'm going to go and have a really nice time because I don't know what will happen next time, or actually I don't want to be missing out anymore on anything. So just go and throw yourself into it and enjoy it. And I think another thing is kind of ditch the guilt as well. I think when you're going through treatment, quite often we limit what we're doing. So we eat really well, we don't drink, we don't do certain things. And over Christmas time, it's nice to be able to overindulge a bit, to eat chocolate at all points of the day, and maybe have a drink. And I think it's about kind of keeping it in moderation. So if you're going through treatment, obviously I wouldn't advise drinking, or I'd check with your clinic around kind of limits on drinking. But I wouldn't feel too guilty about eating chocolates. I think just try and balance it. So having a few more veggies through the week, and fruit, so that you're trying to balance it. But then we miss out on so much when you're going through this. So I think you then don't want to be limiting what you're eating over Christmas and drinking over Christmas. So try not to feel too guilty about that. Enjoy it, and do what you want to do over the Christmas period, and just try and think, well, I'll be good in between. So yeah, I think it's, in terms of coping, it's what's right for you. It's what depends on what you've how much you've told other people as well, and how much you're willing to share as to how much you can explain that things you're not comfortable with things. So do the most important thing is do what's right for you and your partner. Do what you need to do to cope through Christmas time, so that you get through it not feeling burnt out, and you don't feel like you've totally gone against all your boundaries, been pushed, been triggered, everything you've been to. Do what's right for you, and don't feel guilty for saying I need to do this because I've got to protect myself with this. So just do what feels right for you with it is the best thing I can say. I don't know if anybody's got any other comments they want to make or questions. And if you don't want to comment on here or ask a question on here, then please feel free to send me a message afterwards. I'm happy to answer. If there's something you'd rather not have on here, or you just don't want to say in front of other people, totally fine to message me. I am sharing support pretty much daily over December on different things. So kind of linked to what we've talked about now, but there might be other things within that as well. So keep checking out the Instagram page. And if you're in my support group, I'll be sharing it in there as well. If you're not in the support group, please feel free to join. Everybody's welcome. The TTC Support UK started out as my main group, but we got that there was a lot of people who were joining who were quite early on in their journey. So I then set up the IVF one so that there was a space where it was a little bit safer in a way, because everybody who is in there is there because they've been going through IVF. You're not getting quite the same triggering things of people just tracking ovulation at that point. So there's 2 groups there that you're welcome to join. I just ask that you answer the questions because I need to make sure it's a safe space. So if you've answered the questions, then I know that it's somebody genuine, because unbelievably I get quite a lot of people who join or want to join who then post comments about seeing some doctor with some herbs and things like that, or posting comments that they shouldn't be posting on stuff. So I do monitor it so that it tries to keep it safe for everybody. So all I ask is that you answer the questions just so that I know it's keeping it safe for everybody. What you said, sorry, what you said earlier on is spot on about how friends and family can be aware but not understanding. Any more advice on how you can help educate people without pushing them or upsetting them? So I just need a quick drink of tea. There is a blog I've written on supporting loved ones going through it, which does explain how you're feeling when you're going through it and why it's triggering seeing friends' babies and things like that, and why it's triggering asking them questions. So you could share that. I think it's just trying to be as sensitive as you can and just explaining how you're feeling, just saying, this is how it makes me feel. You don't have to link it to them. You could just say, this is how everything is making me feel. I just feel really sad. I find it really hard being around other people's children or being asked questions. I just find it hard with the pressure. It'd be really helpful if you could, and whatever it is that you want them to do. So it'd be really helpful if we could spend time together away from the children, because it's triggering for me, and it'd just be really nice to see you on your own. Or I'd really appreciate it if you don't ask me questions about what we're going through, because it's hard talking about it. So, if we've got something to share, I'll share it with you, or encourage them to read up on the process as well so that they're understanding about it. As I say, there is a blog there that might be helpful if you feel comfortable saying to them, I've seen this blog that somebody's written about how to support somebody at Christmas who's going through IVF, and actually it really explains how I feel. You could maybe share that with them. I think it's just kind of, as much as they may be to blame for not understanding or upsetting you without realizing necessarily, it's about making it sound as though they're not to blame. So, sort of trying to keep it away from, you're making me feel like this. It could just be, I'm really feeling this. I find this really tricky at this time of year. And tell them how you'd like them to support you. So it'd be really helpful to me if you could yeah, be understanding and not ask me about treatment, or if we could meet up without all the children and do something separately, just as grown-ups, or um, if you could not force me to come to things, if it'd be really understanding if you could. It'd be great if you could just be understanding that I might not want to come to all the family things because I find them really hard, and it's not that I don't love people or that I don't want to be there necessarily. It's just really difficult for me at the minute. So I think just being honest about how you're feeling, it's difficult because there's fortunately for a lot of people, they never have to understand how it feels going through this. So it's very difficult to understand that depth of emotion when you haven't been through it yourself. So anything you can do to help them understand how people feel, and that actually it's not just you, it's a lot of people that go through this. Most people going through it feel like this, is helpful to them. I think you'll take a look at share with those close. So yeah, it's there just to share. If you feel comfortable, have a read of it and see if it sort of resonates with you and you're comfortable sharing it. Appreciate I have a part to play in it too, so I could give them guidance on what I need versus just hoping they'll naturally do what I need. It's really difficult though. It's hard to ask for what we need generally without I think we're just not really set up for doing that, for asking people, telling people what we need. And I think, yeah, they won't always understand. And if they know what you're going through, they might feel a little bit awkward and not want to talk about it, or not want to say anything about it to upset you, but then not really know how to fully support you. So saying things like, it'd be really helpful if you could do this, or, I'd really love it if you could do that. And it would make me feel much less alone. It would make me feel supported. But it is difficult to ask for how we want, and it's difficult talking about awkward subjects. Anytime I spoke about it, I found it really emotional. So it's then very difficult to get my point across because I would cry and be really emotional about it. So anything that can help with that, yeah, and do what feels right for you and what you're comfortable with. You don't have to say it all in one go. It could just be, start off with a little bit and then just keep building on it over time, or next time you speak to them, say thank you. It's been really helpful that you've not asked me, you've let me tell you when I want to speak about it, and it'd be really helpful if you could do such and such as well. So, just take your time with it if that feels more comfortable as well. But it's just important to do what's right for you. And yeah, check out that blog and see if it helps. There's one for if you're going through it, but also one for loved ones as well. I don't know if anybody else has any questions. I don't want to kind of finish if anybody does. Like I say, if you don't feel comfortable asking questions on here, please feel free to message me after. And the same applies if you're watching the recording as well. Then please feel free to ask questions. If when I go back and watch the recording, people's names are coming up, then what I might do is just chop the questions off. So that, and then just put when I share it that if you want to ask questions, you can do. But I'll see if you can't see the names coming up on the screen of the recording, then I will share it with the questions as well. But if you can, then I'll cut the video at that point, just to protect people who are on here. So don't worry about that. Yeah, as I said, there's loads of support there. Do what's right for you, and it might be at different points over Christmas that different things feel right. So as you're getting closer to Christmas, you might decide, actually, I want to come off social media over Christmas time. Then you do that. Do what's right for you and what feels right at that point. But just most importantly, don't feel you're on your own. If you're struggling at any point, please reach out. There's loads of people in the group now, and they're all really nice and they understand and won't judge you. So if you want to reach out in the groups at any point over Christmas, there will be somebody there who can get back to you. So yeah, and always reach out to me. You can send me a message at any point, and I promise I will get back to you. But yeah, just don't be struggling alone is the main thing that I would say, because we all understand what it's like. So even if you're at a Christmas do or you're at a family do and you're just getting annoyed because nobody else seems like they understand, then pop to the loo and send a quick message on the group, and I'm sure somebody will be there to say, I feel the same and I'm struggling. So don't ever feel like you're on your own. I'm really glad it's been helpful. Oh, I'm glad I did this story just before. I'm not great with social media and keeping on top of it. It's not really my thing. So I'm glad you spotted it. Oh, and I'm glad you've got the planner. If you've got any questions on it, please just message me. As I say, I'll always get back to you. So if you're not sure, thank you for coming and for your questions and for sharing so openly as well. I know it's really difficult. So I appreciate you sharing. I hope you all have a lovely Christmas, whatever you do, and that you can kind of find some time to yourself, time with your partners or your friends or your family. Whatever you do, I hope you have a nice Christmas. And don't forget that I'm here if you need me. I'm glad it's been helpful. But if there's anything else you need from me, please just message me and I'll get back to you. But thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evenings. And thank you for joining me. Take care and I'll speak to you soon. See you later. Thank you.